What was that film you were watching?
Death, death, death.
Death, death, death.
Part 2.
Oh, Lord. Michael's seen it.
Go for it, man.
Done it. Played it.
Look, I've played them all.
And just when he thought he'd die of boredom,
Brainscan, the ultimate experience in interactive terror.
never leave home without it.
You're in the game, man. You're in control.
You must think like a killer. Cover up any clues. Leave no witnesses, no evidence.
A challenge he can't resist.
It was so real. It was sick.
See, I told you, man. I told you to blow your mind.
A game he can't escape.
There was a grisly murder in the quiet suburban town of Mountain View today.
So you did it.
What was on that disc?
It's not a game anymore.
Hamilton and Hayden.
It's real.
It wasn't supposed to be real.
Real and real, what's the difference?
I didn't kill the man. I didn't even know him.
You're in this now. You won't survive on your own. You started this and now you're afraid to finish it, just like you're afraid of everything else.
I won't kill her. Shoot her.
Wait. The witness has to die.
Edward Furlong, Frank Langella, and introducing T. Ryder Smith as the trickster. Brainscan.
I can't wait to see what you do next.
Yes, it's not a game anymore. It's real. Oh, it's real. And this is your will. This is horror of it all. This is your real will. And you're going to be engaging in something called Brainscan tonight. Well, I wish we were really engaging in the Brainscan video game from the movie, because it's pretty damn trippy. But what we have, instead of the actual video game, we have the movie. I wonder if they made a video game based on it. Why not? They probably did. I should look that up later. So what exactly is Brainscan? Is it a brain scan, like a CAT scan? Like a, MRI? No, it's an American science fiction slasher film. I really call it a science fiction thriller or a psychological thriller. This is from the official wiki, 1994 American sci-fi slasher, directed by John Flynn and written by Brian Owens and Andrew Kevin Walker. The film stars Edward Furlong, Frank Langella, and James Marsh, and as the trickster T. Ryder Smith. And if you recognize the screenwriter, Andrew Kevin Walker, he wrote Seven, and he wrote Sleepy Hollow. So he earned a BAFTA, a British Academy Award, not their equivalent in Britain, a BAFTA Award for Best Original Screenplay for Seven. So this is a good writer, and this is one of the things that really impressed me with Brainscan. Now, it's an older movie, of course, 1994. I remember, seeing the ads for it back in the day, and I was like, oh, I gotta see this. It looked intriguing. Never did. Finally caught it on Tubi, one of my streaming platforms of choice lately, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. In fact, I think I liked it a lot more than I could or should or maybe would have if there wasn't such this cavalcade, this torrential negative reviews and a negative attitude about it. Like, most people don't like it, or certainly on Rotten Tomatoes, right? Which is not the end all and be all, even though people would have us believe that it is. If you dig deeper, and if you go to, say, IMDb, it scores very high. I think it scores 3 stars or so on IMDb. And there's many sort of glowing reviews. And all I can say is one of the things I think, another reason it might have failed at the box office, it might have, just not hit, as they say, with audiences connected, is that it was sort of marketed probably wrong. It's a marketed, sort of from the trailers, and as I played in the beginning at the opener there, and I remember on TV or whatever, that it's this big, this slasher movie, like Jason and Freddy and Michael Myers. It's not. In fact, it's one of the more, I think, sort of, intriguing, almost mysteries, intellectual horror film, or sci-fi horror, or sci-fi thriller. They use video game technology, very kind of quaint now, nostalgic, CD-ROMs and stuff where everyone, uses sort of, downloadables and on the net and online. But I guess a lot of people still do use disc in terms of games, and this is certainly a movie that does involve video games. So that's what makes it both sort of nostalgic and vintage, yet still pretty much current, right? Because people, they do use online and digital downloads of games, but people still do buy, CD-ROMs or DVD-ROMs or disc games. But when all is said and done, this movie plays with that notion of a horrific game, a thriller, an absorbing game. Doom, World of Warcraft. I loved Diablo. I mean, that was my game for several years. I think that a new version just came out or was coming out. So I'm curious, I loved Diablo. And World of Warcraft, it was okay. It's okay. But I just love Diablo. All iterations, all incarnations. And I used to have my crew, my buddy Carlos and Louis, and we'd go around and, revive each other if someone died. And anyway, the point is, these games are so absorbing. They're so engaging. They're so immersive, for good or bad. I know for me, I got a lot of fun out of it. I would take it a little bit too extreme sometimes. And I remember being off from work on a weekend and just, that's all I did from Friday night till like Sunday night. Little extreme. So as much as I love video games, sometimes I just have to pull back and push myself away from the keyboard and the console because it's just overwhelming. But, just even being an Atari kid back in the day, my first, big and true console and legitimate console. But onward with Brainscan, it plays with all of that, and it plays with it really well. And again, this was another, surprise. It was another really kind of shock. I thought it was going to be a slasher, the body count, and it's sort of even almost sociological look into how a child, Edward Furlong, a teen, how he can become sort of completely, immersed in, and engaged and drowned and obsessed with a game, and how that can sort of alter his life. And then, then a body count sort of starts. People do start to die. But it's not, again, like a Freddy or a Jason or a Michael Myers with every minute you're seeing, gore and blood. It's just very kind of, step by step, it's pacing. If there's any criticism from me from it, I think the pacing's a little slow, just a little. I didn't mind it, but some people might say, well, it's a little slow. But again, it's a different type of movie. It's a different type of thriller. Frank Langella plays the police Detective Hayden, and of course he comes in to investigate the bodies because they start to pile up. Then you of course probably know Frank Langella. His most famous role, probably still to date, is Dracula. I believe it was 1979. One of my favorites. He was the Dread Lord, the Prince of Darkness, and he did it better than a lot of people, I'd say. So, but it's a great cast. It's a great, the Trickster, the main villain, is played by an actor, T. Ryder Smith, who is most known for theater, most known for stage work, and a lot of guest stars sort of on TV. But he's great in this film. From the wiki here, John Flynn, the director, this is his quote. It says, "The main interest for me was the Trickster character. He was like a cadaverous Alice Cooper who materializes from the CD-ROM. The Trickster was the core of the movie, and it attracted me to the script. We found the stage actor, T. Ryder Smith, to play the Trickster, and he was extraordinary. Eddie Furlong was a 15-year-old kid who couldn't act. You had to slap him awake every morning. I don't want to get into knocking people, but I was not a big Eddie Furlong fan." And it's really interesting because I think Furlong does a great job. Obviously, Terminator 2, his most famous role is John Connor from the Terminator franchise, the T2, the Terminator's buddy, road trip buddy there. But he's good in this. I mean, there were a couple scenes he looked maybe less than engaged. But in terms of being a disaffected, disillusioned, youth sort of detached and divorced all this, from reality or from, his real life. He plays it well, not definitely not for me. I mean, I guess behind the scenes when you're a director and you've got to motivate your cast and your crew and certainly your lead actors. And if that wasn't, happening for John Flynn, I could understand. But I think Furlong does fine. Langella, they all are really good. So take a chance. All I'll say is that for anyone who enjoys a good thriller, a good sci-fi horror movie, and as a mystery as well, take a chance. And if you love video games and tech, there you go too. I mean, it goes over the top. This is 94. Some of these things, could really never even happen today. But that's where the sci-fi, maybe it's more even fantasy horror, sci-fi fantasy horror. But it certainly delivers on lots of fronts. And I think you'll enjoy. Take a chance. It's on Tubi for free. Absolutely free. Just like us. We're free. We're always free, Sci-Fi Guy and Horror of It All. But of course you can pay $4.99. You get exclusives. You get some goodies. So there's that. Take a chance on Brainscan. Get your brain scanned. And we'll see you.